Applesauce is a customary condiment to accompany pork. Ontario Pork with Apples takes this coupling to the table in a new way, with tart apples lending their flavor to this stew-like dish. Kimberly Green, home economist and registered dietitian, is here to prepare Ontario Pork with Apples for us today. Today we're cooking in the kitchen with Ontario Pork and Apples. Kimberly, before we get into the recipe, what cut of meat are we using today?
Well, for the pork and apples, you need pork cubes. So what we did is purchased just a pork roast. You can buy a sirloin or a loin roast and then cut it up yourself, and it's a little bit cheaper that way.
I see you can buy the bigger piece of pork. How can I use this and not waste it over several meals?
Yeah, you often find the half loin or loin, and it can be either vacuum packed or in a tray like that, and it's usually very inexpensive. So you can cut it up and freeze it into different things like chops or roasts, or even cut up the cubes in preparation for this recipe.
So I see you've already cubed the meat. What do we do next?
So next you put your pork cubes in a baggie with flour and mix it around. Just coat the pork cubes with flour. That'll make browning the pork a little bit easier, and it'll also give the final product a bit thicker consistency, like a stew. So you just put the pork cubes in the skillet with about a tablespoon of oil and half a teaspoon of pepper.
So our meat's cooked. What do we do after this step?
So we take it out and put it on a plate as we've done here, and then in the same skillet we're going to brown or saute rather our red onions, and you might need a little bit more oil, so another tablespoon of oil. I'll just put that in there, and our red onions just until they're soft. So we get you to stir those around.
Now, why are we using red onions in this?
You know what? You could use any onion. It just gives it a nice color.
How long should we let this saute for?
Probably will take about 3 minutes or so just to soften. So now that our onions are soft, we're going to add the rest of our ingredients. And this is apple cider, 1 cup, a cup of low sodium chicken broth, a 1/4 cup of Dijon mustard, or you can use honey mustard, and also the apples that we've used these are Granny Smith.
Does it matter what type of apples we're using?
You'd want something that's a little bit tart and also firm, so it doesn't get too mushy. So an Ida Red or a Granny Smith is great. And at this point too, Tracy, you also want to add back your pork cubes into the mixture. So just stir that together, and then from here all we do is put the lid on and simmer it. Turn down the heat a little bit to simmer for about an hour. So you want to stir it occasionally just to check on it while it's cooking for the hour. And if you find it's getting a little bit too dry, you can add a little bit more cider if you want. Here you can see it's not getting dry. So an hour has passed. Our next step is to add the green onions, about 6 sliced green onions, and cook for another 5 minutes.
Can I freeze this if I have any leftovers?
Yeah, it freezes quite well if there's any leftovers. The apples get a little bit softer, but it still tastes very good. You can freeze it for about 3 to 4 months.
Well, it smells delicious. What would you suggest that I serve this with?
The stew can be served on its own, but it's also nice over cooked rice or noodles or even mashed potatoes.
Well, it looks good. I can't wait to try it. Where can somebody go to get more information on all the pork recipes that you have?
Our recipes are at putporkonyourfork.com.
Well, thank you very much, Kimberly.
Thanks, Tracy.